This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman and Riley Smith. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman. Today is Thursday, May the 19th, 2022. We're definitely glad to have you along for the ride. Coming up in today's show, Riley Smith had a chance to talk with Iowa 4th District Congressman Randy Feenstra as they talk about the cattle market transparency legislation he's helping move through Congress. I have a chance to talk with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst about some of the restrictions that are facing our aid shipments to the Ukraine. We also have a check of that ag weather outlook. But for right now, let's turn it over to Riley Smith for a check of the markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
Well, the markets are coming to a close today, and we'll go ahead and take a look at those numbers by talking with Brian Splitt of agmarket.net. Brian, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. How did the markets fare today, and how are they looking as we get to this closing session?
Well, leader today was soybeans, at least to the upside. Leader to the downside was wheat, and corn looked a little bit confused. We had some spreading. July was positive. New crop contracts were lower, D's of 23, so corn for next year was higher. So just some kind of position squaring in the corn on some of these spreads. But beans up, nearly 30 cents for a lot of the day. We're approaching $17 again on the old crop. I was contacting clients today, just making them aware of the cycle that we're in soybeans. So the monthly highs for beans, and this goes for both old crop and new crop. In the month of February was February 24th. In the month of March was March 23rd. Month of April was April 22nd. And so here we are. Tomorrow is May 20th. So we're getting into that time frame of the month where the soybeans should be making some cycle highs. And we are back to the upper end of the trading range. So something to be mindful about there.
All right, and those soybeans were pretty interesting today because they did have some pretty good gains, and especially in the, I believe, was it soybean meal or soybean oil that had the great gains today?
Soybean meal. So we actually had exports for soybean oil down and exports for soybean meal up, and that's versus the last week and the 4-week averages here. So meal got really cheap compared to everything else. We had nearby meal get under $400 a ton, down to $395 on the July contract. That had tested the 200-day moving average, and so here today we got back up to about $430 a ton. Meanwhile, bean oil has been under pressure, and recently we were made aware that Indonesia is going to lift their export ban of soybean oil. So that is going to continue to put a little bit of pressure on vegetable oils as a whole.
All right, and let's talk a little bit about the wheat marketplace as well. Seeing some pretty big in the red today. Was a lot of that just because they got a little too excited with that news of India banning wheat exports?
Right. So I think, the news itself was exciting, and had they not sold some wheat to Egypt right after making that announcement and making it a very large sale, we probably would have held on to those gains a little bit better. So it's apparent that they are willing to export wheat, but maybe just a different fashion. So the exporters can't just go out there and have wheat available for the world market. What they're going to require is government to government negotiation. So India felt okay exporting that amount to Egypt. They made the deal. Do we see more sales? I don't know. But it doesn't look like it's just a complete ban on wheat exports, which is what it seemed like it was going to be when we had the news over the weekend.
All right, and then let's talk about what happened on the other side of the marketplace in the livestock complex.
Well, not much. Live cattle, very quiet today. December live cattle, very close to the 200-day moving average, very close to what would be a 50% retracement of the whole move from the lows last September to the contract highs that we had last month. We've seen about a month straight of selling there. So we are seeing some minor buying interest coming in, buying some calls, looking at ownership in futures with a risk below that 50%, so maybe about $1.50 risk. We are oversold, and I think it may just require the stock market to stop melting down. That might give us a little bit of a better positive sentiment towards the live cattle market here. But I think that's been a big part of the recent weakness, is the equity rollover that we've seen with the Dow making some new lows for the move, and the S&P and the NASDAQ kind of retesting the lows from a couple weeks ago.
Right, and let's talk about those hogs as well. They'd been seeing some pretty nice gains recently, but obviously those outside market factors have been kind of weighing everything down, especially in the livestock complex.
Yeah, so yesterday was actually a really good day for hogs, considering the carnage that we saw everywhere else. We did have positive settlements across the board in lean hogs yesterday. A little bit of a setback today, nothing too major. But I think, over the last several weeks, we've talked about a head and shoulder top in June hogs. The measurement was down in that 97, 98 area. We did achieve that on the low. I think it was at 97.10, if I'm not mistaken. Saw the market gap higher coming off those lows, gapped over the 200-day moving average. So that was positive. And, we are seeing packers bidding rather aggressively for, I think, over the last couple of days. It's been about 23,000 head of hogs. And so seeing some short covering in the market. We feel that we do have the lows made, and that we're potentially going to go back up into the mid-teens. So maybe a target in the 113 to 115 area for June. Back up towards the downtrend on the chart wouldn't be out of question here.
Right, and of course, we're getting to that real prime demand period for the meat markets in general with grilling season, but it's been kind of held back by those outside market forces. Like I said earlier, obviously you had mentioned the stock market going down heavily. What are we seeing there?
Right. Well, I guess I would lean back to what I'd said previously, where if we could just get a little bit of a stability in the stock market. You look at the NASDAQ and the lows that were made during COVID, right after that major washout early in 2020. Then we had record highs that were made fall of 2021. And the recent lows down around 11,700 represents a 50% correction of that whole move. So that should be a point of interest for some, those participants looking to buy a dip. You look at a lot of the tech stocks have been under quite a bit of pressure here, so this might represent some value to them. If you look at the S&P and the Dow, we've hit not quite a 50% retracement, maybe more of like a 38% retracement of the same rally. So if we can, again, just get a little stability in the equities and start a little bit of a recovery, I think you're going to see the sentiment change to a little bit more positive in the livestock markets.
All right, Brian. Well, lots of great information today. For those of our listeners and our watchers who would like to learn more and get in touch with you at agmarket.net, how can they do that?
You can reach anybody at the Ag Market General line. It's 844-424-6758. You can reach me directly at 815-665-0463. And check us out online at www.agmarket.net.
All right, Brian. It was great talking to you today, and we hope to catch up with you again soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Have a great one.
That again was Brian Splitt of agmarket.net. We'll go ahead and take a look at how those numbers closed today. That's courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. July corn is up 1 3/4 at $7.83 1/4. December corn down 4 1/4 at $7.36 even. July soybeans up 27 3/4 at $16.90 1/2. November soybeans up 15 even at $15.14 1/2. Soybean meal up 11.20 at $4.20.60. Soybean oil down 65 cents at $77.19. Chicago wheat is down 30 1/4 at $12.00 1/2. Minneapolis spring wheat down 22 1/4 at $13.30 1/2. Kansas City hard red wheat down 29 1/4 at $12.95 1/4. July oats down 14 even at $6.27 3/4. On the Merc, live cattle up 32 cents at $132.02. Feeder cattle down $1.72 at $154.12. Lean hogs down 80 cents at $105.30. Pork cutout down 57 cents at $111.77. And Class 3 milk up 18 cents at $24.75. And that's been a look at our ag market recap for today. We'll go ahead and take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I will have some of my discussion with Representative Randy Feenstra on the updated Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Recently, Representatives Randy Feenstra and Cindy Axney introduced an updated version of the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act in an effort to even out the cattle marketplace, which is dominated by the Big Four meat packers. I had the chance to talk with Representative Feenstra about the bipartisan effort and how it will help the average Iowa beef producer. Well, we all know it's tough to market really any product, but recently it's been even more difficult for beef producers, having to compete especially with the Big Four companies. Now, what are Iowa politicians doing to keep this as a level playing field for Iowa beef producers? And for that, we go to Congressman Randy Feenstra. First off, Congressman, how are you doing today?
Hey, it's a wonderful day, and it's a great day. We're seeing a lot of production happening today, a lot of corn being planted, so that's always a good day.
Exactly, and it's great that weather's finally been able to cooperate a bit to let us do that. So let's start off today just talking about the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, just a little bit about what's included in it, and then also what you have put in this new update that's going through.
Absolutely. I tell you what, so the bottom line is we're trying to hold our Big Four meat packers accountable for their price fixing schemes, and this really affects the Iowa and Minnesota region. I mean, we have declining number of participants in the negotiated cash markets. So we put together this bill and we've modified it over time, but between Senator Grassley, Representative Cindy Axney, and myself, we created this to help our farmers and our independent producers. The big things in this bill is it's a bipartisan legislation that requires the Secretary of Agriculture to establish minimum levels of fed cattle purchases made through approved pricing mechanisms, and ensuring that multiple buyers and sellers can regularly make and accept bids. It also sets a penalty for the packers if they don't do this. And then the other big thing is it creates a public library, which we've all been talking about, of marketing contracts, mandating boxed beef reporting, and to ensure transparency and requiring packers to report the number of cattle scheduled to be delivered for slaughter each day and 14 days moving forward. So to me, this is a very common sense approach, trying to get everybody on a level playing field and creating transparency. And that's what all the producers are really asking for in Iowa and Minnesota and other places in the country.
And let's talk a little bit about that struggle that we've seen from the Big Four packing plants and the average beef producer. You know, obviously it's very difficult to compete with anybody in general, but when you're going from a small average Iowa farmer against a huge multi-million-dollar company, I mean, it's a huge struggle, and they just can't do the same things.
That is correct, especially when you talk about vertical integration and you're not seeing the cash contracts anymore because the packers aren't going down that path. And we're seeing that obviously down in Texas and Oklahoma and stuff like that. And that's where we get in a pinch in Iowa and Minnesota, because we do a lot with cash contracts. And that's why we have to change, because we're on the outside looking in, and we've got to change and create more transparency. And that's what this bill does. You know, it still sets a minimum threshold for a region at 50% when it comes to mandates for each region. I think that's very fair.
Right, and let's talk, you know, you mentioned it's a bipartisan effort, and it's great to see things like that, especially for the state of Iowa, because an issue like beef production and making that fair playing field is by nature just not a partisan issue. It's for all of us, and we're all in it together.
Absolutely. And it's not only bipartisan. I mean, we have Democrats and Republicans on both sides. I mean, fairly even bill. But we also are seeing the administration saying, hey, we got to do something. And I just really applaud Senator Grassley. He's been at this for 5 years now, trying to get something done. And it seems like finally we're going to get something to come to fruition here, as both the House and the Senate look to start going down the path of passing this bill in the next several weeks.
We'll have the rest of my discussion with Representative Feenstra in an episode of AM PM next week. For the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, I'm Riley Smith. Now let's go ahead and kick it back to Dustin Huffman for a check of our ag weather outlook.
Well, temperature-wise, it was a lot different than it was the last few days, and different than it's going to be in the next few days. We'll, of course, have those temperatures that we saw in the 90s sticking around through the rest of the day. but that'll give way to some cooler temperatures. Let's see what the National Weather Service has in store for the next 24 hours. Well, we saw those warm conditions today. I mean, it started out sticky and warm, and we saw those highs in the mid-80s to the low 90s. Now tonight we're going to see clouds starting to build, and they'll bring along a chance of showers and thunderstorms across the state. Lows will be in the low 50s to the mid-60s. Then tomorrow we'll start to see those showers and thunderstorms start to break off and give way to partly sunny skies, and highs will be anywhere from the upper 60s to the low 70s. Taking a look at the affiliate weather map, tomorrow Cherokee will be partly sunny and a high of 68 degrees. Shenandoah will see partly cloudy skies and 72. Des Moines will see clouds push away and a high of 70 degrees. Waterloo will see rain and 68. Albia will see rain pushing away and a high of 70. Clinton will be the warm spot with showers and thunderstorms and a high of 73. For more detailed forecasts in your area, tune to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. That's been a check of your ag weather outlook. When we come back after this quick break, I sit down with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst, and we talk about some of the restrictions that are facing aid shipments to the Ukraine. This is Ag Matters PM.
As we approach planting season, make sure you stay safe and share the road with your local farmers. Slow-moving tractors with large planters occupy a lot of space on the road, so stay patient and follow at a distance of around 50 feet. You should never, ever try to pass them at a bridge, intersection, hill, or curve. It's far better than putting yourself or someone else at risk. So please, stay safe and remember to tip your hat to your local farmer this planting season. This message was brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Welcome back to AM/PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, we are in month 3 or 4 or whatever it is now of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and most countries are sitting on the sidelines because they don't want things to escalate into a possible World War III. But that doesn't mean aid packages aren't being sent to the folks in Ukraine. The United States has been among those sending aid to that country. But the problem is we're facing certain restrictions that are considered bureaucratic. Iowa Senator Joni Ernst is leading a bipartisan effort to get some of those laws repealed. However, they could have easily been done by the White House or even the Secretary of Defense. We hear more from Ernst right now. One thing that has been going on for several months is the war over between Russia and Ukraine, or let's just call it an invasion. And obviously, U.S. is among many countries that's trying to get help over to the Ukrainian people. But we're running into some bureaucratic red tape, as it was, just trying to offer assistance. Can you tell us about that situation?
Yes, unfortunately, there will be a lot of need for food in the countries that typically receive their food, their commodities from Ukraine. Primarily, of course, Ukraine is being hit because of the Russian invasion, but that in turn has created this domino effect because Ukraine is literally Europe's breadbasket, as well as they send their goods into the Middle East and Africa, and those areas typically are subject to hunger and starvation anyway. Well, with decreased production in Ukraine because of the invasion, there are many countries worldwide now that will be suffering from hunger. So what we as Americans try to do then is sell our commodities and get them overseas into some of those areas. And we are running into some red tape because currently anything that's considered U.S. food aid when it is being shipped overseas, it's required by law that 50% of those cargo ships are what we call American flagged or owned by Americans, operated by Americans. And currently worldwide, there are only 4 U.S. flagged cargo ships that meet the specifications of the law. There are over 12,000 cargo ships around the world that meet the definition of the law. So we're trying to cut through that red tape and allow more ships to engage, even though we only have 4 U.S. cargo ships. If we can speed up the process, we could get food into Europe, into the Middle East, and into Africa. But right now, the red tape is getting in the way, and we're simply not able to move those goods unless we modify this current existing law and get a waiver, a very narrow waiver just for this situation.
Now, I know you've got a bipartisan effort working right now in Congress. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what kind of support you're seeing for that?
Yes, it is a bipartisan measure. And Senator Chris Coons of Delaware is my lead Democrat on this bill. We have a lot of support coming from some of the major leadership within the Senate. So we're supported by both Republicans and Democrats. And then we also are being supported, of course, by a number of our commodity groups across the state of Iowa, across the Midwest. They also believe that this is the right thing to do to help us move these goods overseas and get there as quickly as possible.
Now, if I understand correctly, because I did a little research on this, obviously Congress has the authority to cut through this red tape, but it also is something that could have come from the Oval Office or even the Secretary of Defense. Is there any word or reason that you've heard as to why that hasn't happened and Congress has to take the bull by the horns?
You know, this is so frustrating because we want Ukraine to win and we want them to win quickly. And you are absolutely correct, Dustin, that the president and the Secretary of Defense have the authority to waive this particular rule, and yet they have chosen not to do it. So one reason that has been brought to us that possibly could be part of their decision making is that, of course, the unions in the United States control those ships. They're manned by union workers. And so there would be pushback because they would feel that union jobs here in the United States might be at risk if we're allowing other foreign nations to carry our goods overseas. But fact of the matter is that the goods need to get overseas to the people that are starving. It is imperative that we do this. And when those four ships actually are engaged elsewhere. They're already under contract with other private industry, so we can't even use them. So bottom line, right now, there is no food aid in the form of commodities moving to Europe, the Middle East, or Africa through this program because those ships are already making money on other projects. They're too busy. And so that's one of the reasons this is imperative we get it done. So I'm sorry if the unions feel they're being slighted, but bottom line, American farmers want to move their goods. This is one way that we can do it. We can get it over into other nations and help alleviate some of the world hunger that's going to exist because of the Russia invasion in Ukraine.
So what kind of prospects has the legislation got? I mean, what's your next step forward? Where are things at there to keep that moving and let Congress make the decision?
Well, we are hopeful. Again, it is a bipartisan piece of legislation. We've even got Senator Mitch McConnell on the bill. He is our Senate Minority Leader. We've got a lot of other heavy hitters as well that have signed on to this, just understanding how imperative it is to move these goods, help backfill for what is being lost in Ukraine. And so we're hopeful that it will move. We need the same effort in the House, though. So we'll continue pressing them, hope that we can get this bill done. Otherwise, those commodities are just going to sit. They are not going to go anywhere. And, you know, it's great when we can move Iowa corn, Iowa soybeans, and, you know, we're going to keep pressing. We think it's the right thing to do, and we're getting a lot of support in the Senate.
I believe you've been over to the region, haven't you, to see what's going on over there?
I have. I did lead a congressional delegation to Poland and to Germany. And those two countries are really, really stepping up when it comes to the Russian invasion in Ukraine. So a lot of folks have called the office. They're very concerned. They're like, why are we the only ones that are doing anything? And I just want to assure everyone that this is an all hands on deck effort with Europe. Those nations are contributing a lot to the war effort, to the humanitarian relief. The country of Poland in particular, I want to give a shout out to them because of the millions, literally millions of Ukrainian refugees that are pouring into the country of Poland. They are actually housing those Ukrainian refugees in their own homes. They have families that are driving to the border. They're registering their family. They are picking up Ukrainians, taking them to their apartments or homes, and allowing them to reside with them. Many others are going to Germany, into the UK and other places, Moldova, others. The Poles even allow the Ukrainians to sign up onto their social welfare program so that they do have subsistence and dollars coming, Polish dollars moving into their pocketbooks so they can live. So there is a lot that's going on in Europe. A lot of these nations really have stepped up. We are providing arms and humanitarian aid, just as I've said, with the food aid that we hope to get over to Europe. So it's, again, an all hands on deck effort. It is devastating to see the number of Ukrainians that have had to flee their homes because of the brutality of the Russians, the indiscriminate bombings and killings that are happening. So yes, we have had a number of members that have actually gone into Ukraine, and we will continue showing a presence in Europe and Ukraine, continuing to praise our allies for stepping up and doing so much. And we'll continue contributing with proper oversight, as always, when we are contributing to that effort.
That again was Iowa Senator Joni Ernst here on Ag Matters PM. We'll be talking with Senator Joni Ernst early next week to talk about the 30 by 30 plan of the Biden administration. That's it for today's episode of Ag Matters PM. We thank you for joining us. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or find all our video content and past episodes of Ag Matters PM on our YouTube channel. Don't forget about our free twice daily market podcasts. You can find them on Google, Amazon, Apple, Podbean, and Spotify. From the IARN studios, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith and Avery Haskell, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.